Wright, who is known among environmentalists as Trump's fracker-in-chief, warned that Brussels' ambitious green agenda threatens the viability of the entire US-EU trade agreement. He called Europe's net zero by 2050 policy a, quote, colossal train wreck and a monstrous human impoverishment program. EU's new green laws aim to enforce environmental accountability across global supply chains and, at the same time, reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Wright says that this creates what he calls huge legal risks for U.S. fossil fuel exporters unless they make massive operational changes. So, in other words, to help you decipher this, the United States oil and gas industry and its lobbyists are pushing back on this U.S.-EU deal unless the EU changes its environmental policy. They're not worried about the Europeans and their well-being. They're worried about their pockets, of course. Last month, ExxonMobil, for example, urged the Trump administration to leverage the trade talks to weaken or to block these EU rules. But the Trump administration is taking it one step further. As the EU is declining, the United States is now blaming the EU for its own demise as it continues to push the EU to the very brink of collapse by forcing it to abandon purchases of Russian energy. Chris Wright blames European energy and climate policies for rising prices, for economic stagnation, and what he calls the deindustrialization of the entire continent. In his words, the EU's exaggerated activist views of climate change and its heavy-handed bureaucracy have undermined energy security and widened the wealth gap between Europe and the United States. It's heartbreaking to see. Needless to say, that statement is a very interesting one, and I would say it is a very cynical one too.